everyone. I'm just recording me, no one else. This is just like an intro. I have hundreds of videos on YouTube, so I'll probably, like, if I say something good or profound, I'll just cut it out, put it on YouTube. That's kind of, but just the beginning part, like not the whole course, obviously. So I'm Chris. I travel around teaching mostly yoga and yoga-related things, but I also love handstanding, hand balancing, and acro yoga, which is kind of a yoga. This is titled Therapeutic Handstands. And immediately as I travel the country, I need to distinguish myself from other kinds of handstand training and other kinds of yoga training and acro yoga training. And so there are distinct characteristics about how I teach that are different. One is the therapeutic approach, meaning I don't want my practice tomorrow to suffer in any way from my practice today. And so there need not be a recovery day. There need not be injury rehabilitation. Sometimes those sort of things happen, but in my experience of teaching lots of yoga therapy, that there's really everything is preventable, and it's just a lack of being fully invested in the moment of what you're doing that created the injury in the first place. So we don't need that. The handstand techniques I'm giving you are, you do your research, you can basically find them anywhere, you know? You do YouTube research, there's a million videos on handstands, you can find thousands of people that have handstand programs, and so the techniques themselves are actually cheap. They're easy to copy. You just, you look up YouTube and then you can turn around and teach it in the class, and it's like, what's the value? The value is in how you practice, how you teach, and in particular for me the most important feature is the words that we say to ourselves. It's the words and how we communicate to our training partners. The words that we, before we're attempting something, what do we say to ourselves that flavors the attempt? Or even when we're not attempting something high risk, when we're just warming up, what are we saying to ourselves? When we're cooling down, what are we saying to ourselves? Because this sets our mind for the experience. For example, so someone could be from a really warm climate and they come here and they're cold right now in this room. And somebody could come from a very cold climate and come here and they're warm in this room. And person A would say it's so cold in here, person B would say it's so warm in here. The actual event didn't change. It's just the interpretation of it. And that will set it in your mind that, oh, I'm cold now, or I'm warm now. And we can even fool ourselves. If we are cold, we can say things like, I'm not warm enough. And that puts the word warm in the sentence, which changes the effect versus the other person might say. Like, for example, I do cold showers as like a training. And the worst thing to say in a cold shower is it's cold. It makes it colder. If you're going to say anything, just be like, I wish it was warmer, or it's not as warm as it like. Somehow get the word warm in there. And so in handstand training, it's very similar. Like, we want to talk to ourselves in a very, no word or sentence should be negative. No word or sentence should bring us down in any way. There should be no breaking ourselves down, no breaking each other down. And because ultimately, what are we doing here? Does anybody here have aspirations of Cirque du Soleil? Yeah? Cool. So I might push you a little, you know? For the rest of us, it's like, it's a fun thing, or we get some experience out of it, some emotion, or some self-esteem or something. And that's cool too. I mean, that's why I do it. I'm not trying to be in the circus. So there's a lot of, yeah, and it's probably possible. And you know, anything is possible, like we were talking about yesterday, if you just take the steps small enough. It's a big leap to try to go from where you are now to there. But if it's left foot and then right foot and then left foot and then right foot, eventually you'd be amazed how far you can travel if you just, instead of trying to sprint there all at once.
No, put one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, you know, like Tony Robbins says, most people overestimate grossly what they can do in the short term, but they underestimate grossly what they can do in the long term. And so that's kind of, with the handstand training, we're doing an hour and a half, 2 hours for a few minutes of success. Maybe if we're lucky, maybe a few moments of success. And that's kind of the handstand training. And so it can't just be a bunch of handstand attempts after attempt after attempt after attempt and then call that handstand training. Because then you end up with a Mexican handstand, so I'm told, of probably planche angle and a back bend and neck tension and wrists ache after a while. And so the words. what's really important now in the beginning, as we just go around the circle really briefly, just let me know your name and maybe a couple of things like what a goal might be for the class, or why you wanted to take this class, or something that's been a challenge for you lately, or anything. Just give me a little bit about you and your hand balancing quest or journey, and that will really help me to describe things in a way that fit you, using the words that you use, because that's what I do. Wow, that's heavy, you know? And so a lot of what I'll be able to, because I don't have a one-handed handstand. Like, I've glimpsed it a couple times, you know, probably like you have. And so what I'll be bringing will be, for you, a lot of counter poses, a lot of things to bring it back to center so that your next attempt is more fresh, you know? And then I may be able to like give you a couple tips or something. I mean, my press, I have a press, but I was a wrestler. And so I was always able to, like, from seated, able to come up and then come down. And I couldn't always keep my balance, so that's where practice came in. That's really cool. I mean, 2-second handstands more than a lot of people, you know? And I'm curious, when you see a 10-second handstand, what do you see? Like, what is that experience like when you achieve a 10-second handstand? Yeah. Achievable. Yeah.
Amazing.
That is, you know, it's good to have bigger goals and smaller goals, you know, because the sense of progress keeps us motivated. There needs to always be like an achievement. And even if it's a non-achievement, to congratulate ourselves for the attempt. Because what else are we here for? We're not here to like punish ourselves. Which brings me to the second thing, that it's never ever in my dialogue, I should do more, or I should practice more, or I need to work on that. And those are all aversing what my sales coach would call resistance triggers. It creates resistance to the actual activity. You either want to or you don't. You either choose to or you don't. There's no should, you know, so you want to. I can tell you really want to. And so that's, you know, that's going to carry you there further. That's going to carry you further, is that I want to and I choose to.
That helped me.
Maybe a lot of it is smaller steps. So not going right to the handstand attempt, but the 25 drills that build up to the handstand attempt. And also having an exit strategy. So when you know how to exit a handstand, then the attempt is, yeah, you got to know how to you can't get yourself into a situation, or it's not useful to get yourself in a situation that you don't know how to get out of beforehand, because then there's a panic in it. There's a cartwheel, basically. You just walk the hand and step down. Or there's a back bending exit if you fall over backwards, which, you know, is fine for some people. Yeah, we don't want to fall flat on the back, so yeah, totally. And the worst is when you fall backwards over, but there's a wall there, and so your knees hit the wall. And that is,
and you'll be by yourself.
you sound like you've done that before, maybe. I've done that so many times.
Yeah.
So you always pay attention, what's around me before I attempt. And yeah, so it'll probably be like 2 or 3 like moments that'll click for you today, and you'll be like, oh, and the fear will, on the other side of that fear is immense freedom and self-power.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
Cool. We'll get you there. The handstand techniques, I break it down into 4 progressions. The first is the wrists. Mobility and strength for the wrists. And this is most important. This is like the bottleneck. This is the weak link in most handstanding. And shoulders, mobility and strength. Hips, mobility and strength. And then finally, actual balances, how to balance on your arms and progressions of that. And I rotate through these in a cyclical way. So I go wrists, shoulders, hips, balance, then back to wrist, shoulders, hips, balance, wrist, shoulders, hips, balance. And I progress until I'm at one-handed handstands and I'm doing like fingertip push-ups kind of thing. And then there's a cool down. Yeah, let's just begin.